Started right on time. All members are present, regular meeting. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We started recording. And it is recorded. Okay. Nice. All right. So. First of all, we'll start with comments from the public. How about in the room?
Yes.
Yes.
So Carl, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for bringing this potential deal to the town. I know you've been pursuing something for many, many years, and this looks like a really good opportunity. What I wanted to say to you, though, was
And you're
that.
referring to the docking down.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry, but
Yes.
the point revitalization.
Yes.
Renamed,
Yeah.
right? Okay. What I wanted to say to you was that as I reflected on the meeting on April 30th, it seemed at the time like those participating were about evenly divided. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have any independent polling.
Yep.
You can hire me to do that if you'd like, but anyway, I would love to see this pass 90-10, you know, in the way that the perf report passed. With lots of participation, but overwhelmingly supportive. And what it would take, in my mind, for that to happen is for some of the questions to be answered that were posed at the meeting and I've since heard about to be answered by the town. I think it would be wise for us to take a small amount of money, I don't know, 50,000 perhaps, to really flesh out what we could do, sort of what's the minimum and what's the maximum, and what the, broadly speaking, what the cost might run between X and Y. And so we're not dealing with sort of maybe this, maybe that, maybe. In addition, we could take the time to really relocate the bridge club and the yoga people, you know, just tell them where they're going to be to win over that support. Because what I envision, if we don't do that, is a divided town. And that divide might persist over several years as the town moves forward to try to get this done. And so would we run into the same thing we ran into with smoke on the water? Coming from the North Cove? Would we run into opposition to every request to spend a surplus or to budget a line item or whatever? Because this won't be the last vote.
No, it won't be.
What we have to take. So that's why I would love to see us take a few months and a few dollars relative to the overall cost of this project and really answer all those questions as best we can. And there'll always be unknowns. I think it would be worth it. So I encourage you to maybe have another public meeting, but with more details available and delay the vote perhaps to September. You know, August, September, well, August is always a bad month here, but you know, so that we could really get that 90-10 vote. And I know there are reasons not to, but
Yeah.
I just would encourage.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Jane?
No, I'm here really in support of Deborah. With, Deborah's sentiments, I echo those. I do think after the April 30th meeting, it did seem like we've had a lot of people with a lot of questions that wanted to bring different ideas and say, well, what about this? What about that? They wanted to get to the point, they wanted to get to buying into the vision. And I think the pictures went a long way, but the pictures are just pictures and there's no dollars behind that. And I think if we had a more tangible plan, that we could really get the town excited and ready to cheer this and not have to fight discordance down the road.
Thank you. Nancy or Susan? Oh, I'm sorry, Susan. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Susan, you should be able to speak.
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm trying to speak and I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, yes.
You can. Thank you. Thumbs up in universal language. Um, I have a couple of thoughts and I'm going to do it as chairman of the Park and Rec Commission because there were some questions that we had that haven't been brought back to us in an answer form. And one of them was the succession question about what happens if the owner, John Kadama, should pass away. How does the lease continue? And another question was whether the lease could be sold and given to some other entity. And then the second set of questions we had really went around the sewage issue, whether the proposal for use of the Now Pavilion into a restaurant would be able to tap into the septic system of the old Dock and Dine. Who would be responsible for that? If something happens to that, is that the town's expense of fixing? Should a storm come and change that septic system because it's an older grandfathered septic system? Where is that dollar is going to go? And the as a resident, I'm going to take off my chairman's hat and just go to the residents. As a resident here, I feel this is being rushed a bit. There are too many details, too much of changing our mindset from having a very beautiful pavilion being used by any of the residents in town or organizations to a possible private restaurant and then gaining use of a 2.2 acres of land on the other side of the mini golf. I feel we need more time. There's going to be a lot of details coming through on the final, I don't want to say resolution, but agreement that the town, and as a resident, I need to be able to absorb, to be able to digest, and then be able to make a informed vote on the possibility. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, typically, well, I'll just do it in our comments. Nancy Walsh, if you have a comment, you may raise your hand. And Nancy, I know tunes in a lot. Listen. Okay, why don't we do comments from the Selectmen? Matt, I'll turn to you.
I think I'll save my comments for when we get into the agenda items, because it's really focused around the point project.
Scott, you can.
I think we could study this thing forever and ever and still not have a solid plan, because plans are malleable as we go forward. So I think we have an opportunity at this point in time that it's something that we must seriously consider, and I think that I think it's pretty obvious that people are definitely I think they recognize the opportunity and know that it's something that we should absolutely pursue. And if we went to referendum in the very near future, I think we'd be affirmed with that decision. And I appreciate the comments that you're all making. I don't disagree with anything that I've heard. However, I do believe that, you know, you're not going to ever know, and we're not going to have the information that I think may delay the process, and it may delay the opportunity or lose the opportunity. So that's my comment.
All right. Okay, couple things here. With regard to, so one reason in favor of not having a referendum on June 18th. So a couple things. Number one, we are required to have another public hearing by statute. And that's a good thing. Because hopefully we will be further down the road with the agreement. So I did go over the agreement again with our attorney let's say Tuesday. I don't know, probably a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, we did send documents back to the other side. And with regard to any succession. Planning of the lease or anything where. The restaurant would be sold, we did put in a provision for a right of first refusal. So that is new, actually, that was suggested to me by a member of the public, and I was like, yeah, that should be in there. If it's gonna be sold, the town should have an opportunity to purchase it. Number one, the septic, I also coincidentally addressed Susan in the last round of discussions with the attorney. So there will be no restaurant approval if there's no septic. This is the issue that Whole Foods is having. They're before zoning, they're saying. And there's zoning is saying, you know, that Whole Foods went to zoning, and zoning, it's like, yeah, great plan. Where's your CRAD approval? They're like, we don't have it. Well, come to us with a CRAD approval and then we'll look at your plan. So without a septic approval, they're going nowhere, number one. Number two, I insisted on putting in there that should in the future, they have to fix the septic, they would have the right to use the septic. That if there was any damage done to any part of the property that the town would then own, obviously they'd have to restore it to condition that is equal to or better than what it was. So number one, the septic would have to be approved by CRAD for a restaurant. Number two, the town will be protected in the near future or in the future period with regard to any work that would have to be done on the septic. So that's that. Three, with regard to a plan, I don't disagree that it would be nice to have a better plan. So let me suggest a few things. I don't think it's overly complicated either, because the town is not making this dynamic open space. There's not gonna be a building, there's a proposed pavilion on it. We do have a proposed cost for the seawall that Bob Murphy and Lou Vinciguerra from the Harbor Management Commission did about 6 months ago. And that was on the high side, they figured about $325,000. And the reason it's not crazy high is because we're not tearing down a seawall and rebuilding it. We're basically putting stone revetments and then building from behind or digging from behind and pouring concrete in. So it's not this, massive reconstruction from the ocean side or the sound side of a seawall. And their estimate was about $325,000. It wouldn't be hard to get an estimate from Jesse Dibble as to what a 100 by 100 or whatever it's gonna be, parking lot would be, and then some landscaping. And Ray Allen did get a quote on a 30 by 80 pavilion from a company that builds pavilions. Now, this is not a 3-season pavilion, it's just a pavilion, and it was $132,000. So there are, you can easily see yourself getting up into the, just between the seawall, 100, you're 500,000 with a pavilion. And then if you had to dig up the whole property, mill and pave and a lawn, putting down grass seed or putting down whatever we chose to put down there, you could definitely be in the upper 6-figure range, pushing 7 figures. So there has to be investment in the property. I think we all know that. I all along, well, not all along, but even more recently have felt that acquiring this property is something that 10 years from now, people will be like, oh my God, I can't believe we ever even had to consider that. Because I think it's just, once it's integrated into town open space, I think people are just gonna take it for granted that we should have had it all along. So that is kind of where I am, and I think 10 years from now, if we don't acquire this, I think it'll be regret. I think people 10 years from now, if the town had to buy it at that point, would be very, it's gonna be one of those deals that I think people will be just like, God almighty, we had a chance to acquire this, and we did 2.2 acres on the river. So with that, we'll get into the agenda a little bit here, but those are some comments. I think you could easily approach, and I said this in the planning commission meeting, between, you know, the seawall and milling and paving and a pavilion, you know, things cost money. Now, you know, another point that I'd like to make is years ago, when there was this great demand to buy the preserve, no one cared. They said, spend the money, $3 million of town funds, with no plan. And we're still working on that plan. 10 years later, we just passed a forest management plan. So that was buy it and figure it out later, because we had to have it. I think it's important to acquire this property one way or another, and however we get there, I think we should seriously consider it. So with regard to the documents, so I think several people have mentioned it to me. There's a purchase and sale agreement and a lease agreement, and I have personal experience with these things as a lawyer. Not everybody does. I don't think either concept is difficult, but when you start talking about a land lease, that gets a little bit trickier when trying to explain that to people. And it's just not the language that people see every day. So I do understand that. And I have no idea how long it's gonna take us to negotiate on the purchase and sale agreement or the land lease. So we got these documents back to them. We've heard nothing in over a week. So that's a little concerning. So let's discuss what we have to do and whether there's a way for us to present maybe a more comprehensive plan. And but at the same time, I think keeping this on a reasonable track to put this to a vote, whether it's June 18th or not. Let's figure that out. So I hear everybody. I have the same concerns, Deb, that you mentioned. The last thing I want to see is a 51-49 vote on this. I don't know that spending 50,000, 30,000, I don't know that prevents that. It is an emotional issue for certain people. It just is. And it will be for many. Anyway, those are some of my comments on what we've heard so far. Before we get off that topic on selectmen comments, anything else?
Well, I guess I might as well speak up then. And you know, I'm in support of this, very much, and for a lot of the reasons that, you know, you just stated, Carl, and you know, as Deb stated, I think that a decade from now, it's a no-brainer, and the risk of not moving forward is just as concerning. I think that whether my only reservations on timeline at the moment are to make sure that you, me, Scott, the Park and Rec Commission, all have the time to appropriately have the information and do our best to communicate it to the public so that they have as many of these answers as possible. You know, Susan Esty brought up the questions around wastewater. You've addressed that a little bit. You know, that's a common question that I kept getting asked about. And I didn't have the answer to that. Specific kind of scenarios around the transfer of the property. those are questions that I get that until we see the agreement and see what the specificity is. I don't wanna go out on a limb and provide people with the wrong, potential answer. And then, to Scott's point, and I do agree, municipalities do this all the time. We study things to death. And I've tried to explain to everybody that there are baseline expenses that we would have to put in to have a bare minimum publicly acceptable park at that point. And I said, beyond that, that's the democratic process. That is people giving their input as to what is the end result of the park that we have. How much do we want to invest? Do we just want a pavilion? Do we want other amenities there that like a playscape, or how many trees? Those are things that increase the budget. And we need to go through a process for that, answering questions around zoning and food trucks. We're not going to go down those roads until we know if we're going down this road in the first place. So we need I think the more that we can present very clearly to people, specific answers. This is the baseline budget that we've had professionals provide us with quotes and estimates for, so that we know that that's a real number and not back in the napkin. The specificity around transfer. Another question that I get is traffic. How will both a premier park and an additional dining establishment impact traffic on College Street and in that area?
Mhm.
Those are the common questions that I'm getting. But I think, again, going back to the work that we all have at the Board of Selectmen and the Park and Rec, I think it's not like we have to put some, just kind of nominal amount, but being willing to take dollars now and make sure that we can get the right estimates, engineering, that we need, I think is a demonstration to the town that we're committed to make the investment in this project and make sure that we're making the investment and being transparent as to what we're committing to as a town. Because I do think that we can get people on board. I've talked to a lot of people that said, I went into that meeting on the 30th and I was against it. And I walked out and I'm for it now. So we're making that progress with the town residents. And, for the three of us, we were given this information over a year ago when the idea first came to us in executive session. And we all had our, reservations knowing that this was a trade-off. And so we've had a lot more time to process this and think through the positives and the risks that we're presented with right now. So I think that's my comments at the moment.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple other comments. We did meet with David Corus from CMDA, not MRDA. And good conversation. In fact, Chris Costa immediately sent him all our zoning regs. She's being super strategic about how she's approaching this, and this is with regard to getting some additional housing, hopefully on Main Street. And helping some of the property owners enact some of the ability to increase housing stock on Main Street that's already on the books, but perhaps with some CMDA assistance. It's going to involve a little bit of soil testing, just to make sure that there'd be enough for septic system capacity. And she is trying to get some money from Department of Housing through Ben Lovejoy. And they seem actually very much on board with assisting the town in doing that. So what Chris is trying to do is partner with two state agencies and combine their resources to benefit the town. Subsequent to that meeting, David Corus emailed me and said he's doing a piece with NBC, the local affiliate, on his new role at CMDA, and they are choosing to walk down Main Street, Old Saybrook. And he said, will you join me? So I think that is next Tuesday, about 9 o'clock that we're doing that. For the life of me, I'm not I'm glad he's choosing, yeah, next Tuesday, I'm glad he's choosing Old Saybrook. I think the point that he's trying to make is that we're not here to only help Bridgeport and Hartford and New Haven. We're here to help towns be the best they can be. And that may be adding 20 units here and not 150 units, but to help towns do what they want to do, as long as it fits within the mission of CMDA. For CMDA stands for what?
Connecticut Municipal Development Authority,
And it used to be
MRDA,
MRDA.
the Municipal Redevelopment.
So anyway, we did meet with him and productive conversation moving forward with that. You know, just a real bit of kind of sad news that was given to me last night. I don't know how many of you knew Joe Desitel, lives in town. Joe owns Downs Construction Company. They built the police station.
Mhm.
Lived in town. I mean, saw Joe walking after he built, you know, and just a wonderful guy. And I was notified last night that he suddenly passed away. And I knew Joe pretty well, so I'm bringing this up, but he did spearhead one of the main construction projects that we've had in town over the last 12 years, and that was the construction of the police department with Downs Construction. So condolences to the family. We've had a very busy week of bids. So Chalker's Mill Pond Dam went out to bid last week. Low bid was about 185,000. We have set aside over about 300 to 350,000 for that project. And there were 5 bids at 250 and under. So we're good. We had 7 bids on that project, which was great. Yesterday, we bid 2 other projects, sidewalks from Dairy Queen to Westbrook. That came in at about 1.2 million as the low bidder. And this is the downside of it. No, I mean, I hate to come forward because it's a public meeting, but and we have about 1.5 set aside on it.
So you said it came in at 1.2?
2,
Okay.
and it was Bill Layton, who's done a lot of sidewalk work in town. So Bill is a very reliable guy who does sidewalks, and he's really good at it. They move right along. So really happy with that bid. The other bid that came in yesterday, which was interesting, was the Main Street crosswalks. And that bid came in higher than expected. There's only 3 crosswalks that we're proposing to do. And the bid, and I have to verify this, it was about $500,000 for 3. And I really didn't think it would be that high. Now, we do have $500,000 set aside for that project, but it's just hard to believe that a crosswalk is $170,000 to put in. But these are sidewalks, irregardless, we're doing those crosswalks because that's one of the most important projects that we can do with our Main Street. So very busy week, good bidding, you know, we have the money set aside, so we're in good shape. Ryan Walsh, doing well. I've been meeting with him weekly. Police department seems to be just humming right along. Getting ready for our June 22nd, our Celebrate Saybrook Day. We had a meeting last Thursday or Thursday before. We're laying down putting everybody where they need to go. And lastly, today is the budget. And I saw the Democrats put something out with regard to encouraging people to vote. So that's great. So hopefully we'll get a good turnout, a supportive turnout, but we will see later on today. There'll be a special board finance meeting at 8 o'clock tonight to discuss the referendum results and hopefully set a motion if the budget passes. Those are my comments. Approval of the minutes from April 22nd.
Motion to approve?
Seconded by Scott. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All right. So first item, we have 4 applications for the NAA this year. So as you guys well know, we need to set a public hearing and a town meeting for these. Let's see what we do. Hold on, let's just-
Maybe
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
okay, well, why don't we, on the public hearing, I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing on this for May 27, 2025 at 6 p.m. Right here at 302 Main Street in the first floor conference room. These are typically very uncontroversial applications. You can see how the various nonprofits are looking to use the NAA funds. So I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by somebody?
Scott.
Scott, I didn't hear it.
We were both like whispering. 'cause we
Yeah,
didn't know who was
I know.
gonna go, yeah.
All right, good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. I'm gonna need the signature from both of you on this.
Yeah.
So get, just. So. So look, if we're going to consider. Moving the referendum. Off June 18th. Again, I don't want to lose momentum on this, but. Okay, well, where are we? Motion, public hearing. So the public hearing, I've set for June 10th. I want to make sure that we're ready to have a public hearing.
Right,
Right.
I mean, we don't, at the moment, we don't have.
Any information.
A formal copy of the lease.
Right.
And sale agreement.
And that is my concern. I mean, you know, these documents are still in draft form, so,
And Carl, I have a question.
Yeah.
For you, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to phrase this because I don't want us to undermine our. Negotiation position, because we don't have.
Yeah.
A final agreement, but, you know, Can you talk a little bit specifically to me, but to everybody about what the wisdom from a negotiation point of view is in trying to keep this to a tight timeline right now, and how that helps us versus hurts us?
Yeah. Well, if we are looking to. Number one, get started on the project, if we were to acquire it, to get started on our part of the project. And also it actually works for both parties. Obviously, we want to get started on it. If we were to acquire the property, looks like we're gonna have a decent surplus this year. So put some money to work, which we can, you're not gonna set money aside, although. By the time the books are closed, we're usually making surplus appropriations at the end of August.
Yeah.
And sometimes into September, so. It's possible even putting this out a few months would still be appropriate for that, should it pass that referendum. And the restaurant owner, in theory, you have to close out all your pavilion events.
Yep.
Which get booked, let's just assume they're gonna get booked 6 months in advance. And then let's assume it takes him 6 months to do his outfitting. So I think there's some anxiousness on that side, and not that we have to be overly concerned with that, but. You know, I think I've said to both of you, we were in a meeting once and they were trying to move it along, and I'm looking at them like, you've let this property sit for 13 years, don't start putting pressure on us. So I am truly less concerned about that, and I'm more concerned about the timing for the town, obviously, as we all should be. So I don't think putting this off slightly will hurt anything. And I want to make sure that when we do go to a public hearing, that you're right, that we have rock solid information on the lease and purchase agreement, that we have an agreement, we can go to people and say, hey, we have a right of first refusal. The septic issue, no issues with that. And my only concern with getting better plans or a cost estimate, that can cut both ways.
Mhm.
So it is going to take investment in this property. It's a piece of junk. And you can run through $1 million pretty quickly. Yeah, it's a public meeting. I just said that again, okay? But if the seawall is $300,000 and milling and paving is another, whatever, 150, and then doing some nice landscaping, you just, the numbers are right. And you want to put in a pavilion, that's a 3-season pavilion. I mean, the numbers add up, but it is also going to be one of the most special places on earth, in my opinion. And it deserves the investment, so I'm not gonna shy away from that. But I don't have, any plan that I think it would be a little bit foolish to invest too much money in getting an exact.
Yeah.
Because if the referendum fails, then you've spent money on, and not that that's the worst thing, people have their information and they voted on it. So I'm not opposed to, we can table a little bit of this for now, maybe we table it
Mhm.
and just set new dates
Mhm.
for that. Maybe that is the way we should handle this.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
And then what I can do in the meantime is put some pressure on the other side to say, hey, we sent you documents and it's been silent. So why don't we nail the documents down so that the public can know what they're getting? In the meantime, keeping, not ruling out July. And even August, I mean. You're gonna have a referendum, you gotta be careful about school, and I know we do it with the budget, but it becomes a lot trickier. So there's no harm in doing something in the summer, and there will be absentee voting.
Yeah.
So it's not like people couldn't vote if they want to, or if they were on vacation. I've had several people call me, what,
Absentee voting on a referendum?
well, absentee, yeah, I mean, there'll be.
Okay.
Even if we did this now with this timeline,
Yeah.
you would have been able to vote in advance. We would have had the ballots ready.
Okay,
You would not have been able to request a ballot to be mailed to you and mail it back to you. You request an application for a ballot, you get it,
okay.
and then you send it in. That won't happen. But if you know you're gonna be away, you can walk into the town clerk's office, get your ballot and vote, and give it right back to them and say, I'm out, you're done. So that was available even on this timeline.
Okay,
And it will be available on any other timeline. It has to be. You can't just, I think we have to have the ability to vote if people by absentee ballot. So, all right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we table, I'll move to table item number 2, B.
Should we-
I made the motion, you'll second
I'll
that?
second, yep.
Scott, you okay with that?
I'm fine. I've heard plenty of information that I think it merits a little bit more.
And tabling means it will be taken up at a later date.
Yep.
So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So.
Oh.
There's that.
Are we tabling C and
Well,
D?
what I
as well?
wanna do with this
Just wanna do
is, since we have not, so we've not voted on this, so what I'd like to do is, if we're gonna have a town meeting, I have to have a town meeting for these NAA applications.
Yeah.
So I wanna move, I'm gonna make that we call a special town meeting on May 27, subsequent to the public hearing. That's how we've done it in the past with the NAA applications. So what I'm gonna do is, Tuesday, I'll change this after. So we'll amend the call of the special, we don't have to amend it. I mean, it's an agenda item, but the call of the special town meeting will only have one item, and that will be 4 subsections, and that'll be the NAAs, and the date will be May 27th, following the public hearing. The rest of the town meeting that is on the agenda today will be tabled, and that would be, it was going to adjourn the referendum anyway, so, really, it wasn't even going to be taken up at that town meeting. But I do want to move the date.
Yep.
Since
Yeah, there's no
why be
reason to
out on
push it out.
a different night?
Yep.
If you don't have to be. So I'll move the call of the special town meeting, to have one item, and that is with the NAA applications. And to remove the other item with regard to the Dock and Dine property. And change the date and the location, May 27th, following the public hearing. In town hall. And that agenda will be modified. If you, I don't know what your timeframe is, I'll need you to sign it. At some point too.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I'll
Right.
second that motion.
Okay. All right. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So, but I want to be clear on this. I'm gonna move on this still. I hope with reasonable speed. To get some cost estimates. Basically for the parking area. Maybe call Brad Hull.
Yep.
And say, in your professional opinion, what's it gonna cost to landscape something like this? You know. I think it has to see if get a pavilion with sides that we can make it into a 3-season, maybe it'll give us a little time to work on something like that. Because that was a rough estimate. The seawall, we're still waiting for a permit from DEP. But the Harbor Management Commission is pretty confident in their estimate, and I gave you the high estimate for them. And then we'll have hopefully a little bit more detail. We'll just go to people and say, go for it or don't, but this is gonna be a park to the stars, people are gonna love it. All right? But not ruling out moving this when it's time to move it. And that may not be 3 or 4 months from now, it may be sooner. Okay,
If we have the information,
yeah,
then
all right. All right, so. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. And then we will table item number 3.
D, you mean,
What?
C? Item C or D?
Item number D, I'm sorry, we'll table that item also, because that will also have to be on a future agenda, so I'll move to table it.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, okay. Let me get Leanne, who wants to talk about the pension plan IPS.
You don't wanna stay for the.
Pension plan? Oh, God, yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good
Yeah,
day.
thanks, guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, it said, you don't wanna talk about the pension plan? Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, there are a lot of attachments I have to find.
Oh, don't worry about the attachments. Okay, so the investment policy statement revisions are looking for approval by the Board of Selectmen. The pension and benefit boards recommends that you do approve it. So typically, we do this annually, and actually this one has taken us 2 years because we had a lot of discussion and kind of a mini asset allocation review as part of this. In the end, we didn't really end up changing too much. We ended up tightening the band for US equities so that we would have a larger allocation of US equities. There's been a lot of discussion at the pension board about having too much money in emerging markets and international markets, particularly when the US markets have been so successful. So we did make a small change there and reduce the overall cash position to make sure that that is implemented. The other noteworthy thing that I would bring up is that the actuarial assumptions, which we have been reducing methodically every single year. I forget what they were, 8%. Now they're down to 6.75 and 6.5% for the town and fire department respectively. And our actuary actually said enough is, it's enough. You finally have reached equilibrium, which is great news because the pension board was ready to reduce those rates as well. So, and then the final thing is that we just added language to recognize the QRDO status, and that's, I forget what exactly those initials.
Qualified domestic relations.
So when somebody gets divorced and their partner gets part of the pension, we had a couple cases like that, and we had to work that into the policy. So those are the major changes, and Morgan Stanley did review and work side by side with all of us during this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Certainly appreciate your expertise in this area, because it benefits all of us.
Yes.
You also do a great job of explaining each year.
Oh, well, thank you.
And also thanks to the pension benefits board for the time that they put in on this.
Absolutely, they did a great
It's a good
job.
board.
Yeah.
It's a super, no, it's so funny. It just flies so under the radar, but it's a board of super high quality people, and obviously having Leanne help lead the board is just, we're lucky.
Yeah.
So.
And we're, if I may just add one more side note, we're working on the policy documents for the
The pension plan.
pension documents now too, so that'll come before
So-
the Board of Selectmen.
Leanne said it was time the last time the pension plan was looked at and edited to make it a modern document was 2008. So we're going through it right now
Mhm.
to make sure it speaks to our current plan, our current members. We've had a defined contribution plan come into being since then. So the plan will be a document that reflects Old Saybrook in 2025.
Correct.
So that's been, the hour and a half long meeting yesterday on that,
Mhm.
before my medical procedure.
Yes.
Mm,
Can't believe you was.
Not after. So, all right,
Okay,
so I'll make a motion that we approve the IPS modifications as stated by the finance director.
Second?
Okay, any further questions for Leanne? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Discussion action on refund of driveway encroachment permit on Trumpet Beach. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, I'm gonna take G through L as one. And I'll move that the fair housing resolution, fair housing policy statement, Title 6 equal opportunity statement, the municipal grievance procedure, affirmative action policy statement, and the ADA notice be approved or recertified. Second by Matt, all those in favor?
Can I just a clarifying question?
Yeah.
These are annual that we
Annual.
adopt, and it looked like all that was changed was the effective dates.
They're posted.
Yep.
On the board down there. So, yeah,
Thank you.
that's it.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, that was something that you spoke about getting on the website that
Yeah.
available for employees, and I think
Yes.
that's all been addressed. Pardon?
Good memory.
It's funny, because I a unique little topic.
Great.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Appointments, item number one, we've had Mary Delmonico resign from the Acton Library Board. And to put her in her place, Maureen Lawson. It's the remainder of a 6-year term. Maureen works for United. Do you ever?
No, I didn't see that attached.
Well, Maureen works for United Healthcare and manages. met with Nancy, Maureen, over 35 years in accounting and financial environments. She's worked for United Healthcare since 2002. She manages and guides department charged with the administration of external producer broker compensation for approximately 100,000 brokers and annual payments in excess of $1.8 billion. She and then previously worked for MedSpan. Maureen lives right on Main Street next to, well, right on Main Street. 2 kids, and, you know, Maureen's a Republican, replacing a Republican. And I know Nancy Walsh and Amanda have spoken to Maureen. I have spoken with Maureen. And she's a strong candidate, and I want to make sure that people understand that the library is there to be run as the library, and you know, we want the library director to run the operations of the library. And I've made that clear to everybody on that board. It's a good board. Nancy leads that board. She does a good job. And I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with moving the library forward into the future with their renovation. So I am going to move Maureen.
Second.
Further discussion, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Brad, Dr. Dunn has been incredible. He served on Brad forever. We're lucky to have him. He runs a biotech firm, Iterum. They're on the Research Parkway. Don't hear boo from him. You know, the Crad's been run well. Do you know Michael Dunn?
I'm acquainted with his wife.
Yeah. We're lucky to have him in town. He's an entrepreneur. I hope, you know, hopefully he is willing to do this. When he gets the letter, he may send it back to me. But I haven't heard that he hasn't been attending. So, so I'll move Michael Dunn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I don't know whether he's an R or a D, to be honest with you. I really don't. I just know we're lucky to have him. This is Conservation Commission, Francine Komkowski. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Who, because it was, oh, so this is to replace Larry Ritzopt?
Yes.
Okay,
This was put forward by the DTC, this name.
okay, thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Economic Development Commission, Erica Cosenza, and then Erica's currently an alternate. David Fogel would be appointed in her position. Look, in full disclosure, Deb Shaw came to me and said, you know, I think the board right now is either 4-3. This would make it more of a 5-2 board on EDC. Erica's a worker. I don't know if you know Erica, Matt. She's been on EDC for a while. Jen Donahue said she's one of the people I turn to like every day. She works, she gets it done. And I explained that to Deb. Deb was okay with it. And you know, David's brand new. David came to me, just said, you know, my job is either he's retired or whatever. How do I get involved? And I sent him to the DTC as a Democrat, wants to get involved. Now he's going to your meetings, I think. And I wish I could, you know, I feel like I've sent so many people.
Appreciate it.
Well, I mean, if they want to get involved, they have to.
Yeah.
Mike, I forget his name, was another one. He's on the Mariners Way. No, he's on a different committee. But Mike McDonald, I think his name is. Anyway, so
So this is elevating Erica to replace
it is.
Casey
It
and
is, and
adding
even though
David as.
it throws off the numbers a little bit, we all know that's not a political board at all. And it really comes on the recommendation of the director. Otherwise, all right, so I'll move Erica. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Matt, you good with that?
Yeah, I said,
Okay, and
yeah,
David, I'll move David
second,
onto the, yep, and is there a second? Seconded, all those in favor, aye. Matt? Is that board even meet?
we met. Gosh, I wanna say it was like summer of 21 or 22. We met once, we came in and it was to spend down. There was a fund that we were spending down. That's the only time the oversight committee met. Yes, for the law enforcement. I thought that we were close, but to it being fully spent down. Cause that was a question that we asked during that time. Now, if somebody made a donation to it, that could
Okay,
reauthorize it.
why don't I reach out to Ryan Walsh and see where we are with that?
Yep.
Because I don't know, but, I'll table it for now. That way-
Yeah.
Why don't we,
Find out what the status of
yeah, why
the
don't
fund
we, we'll
is.
find out the status.
Yeah.
So, I'll move to table the appointment. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye,
That's that night fund.
Yeah,
yeah,
the remains of it.
I thought we had
And
spent,
I-
I thought we spent the whole.
I remember that, but yeah. That was sort of like the objective.
You know,
Motion to adjourn?
yes,
Second.
yeah, second.
Aye.